This is also going to be an issue potentially for the new sporting director who's coming in. There's been developments in recent hours that it looks like Andrea Berta, ex-Atletico Madrid, is now the top candidate. So, firstly, do we know how close a deal is, and is it looking like a sure thing?
I wouldn't say it's looking like a sure thing, but it's looking the most likely for now. He's definitely a strong candidate who is in contention for the job. My understanding is that there has been no offer made yet to him or to anybody, but he is very much in the running. He's one of the guys on the short list that is being whittled down sort of week by week now. It's interesting. Josh Kroenke has flown in. Obviously, he was at the training ground yesterday. I imagine he'll be going out to PSV today and probably be at the United game at the weekend. So the timing of his latest visit sort of coinciding with a point where Arsenal are looking to make a swift appointment now and get someone in place. And Berta is the guy at the front of the queue at the moment. But until it's signed and it's done and the offer's actually been put on the table, which again, my understanding hasn't happened yet, that we'll have to wait and see on it. But he's a strong candidate. He's available now, which is just really, really important. I think when you look at someone like Roberto Alave, who's also been a strong candidate, who Arsenal have looked at, he's been very, very adamant that he's going to see the season out with Sociedad. Focus is going to be purely on them. So you're talking, you're potentially June, July before maybe you've even be able to get him in place if you're going to choose him. And you're well into the summer window already at that point, and preparations for that have already started, but they need to really be ramped up from this point onwards. So if you can get Berta sort of in position and ready to go ahead of the sort of official opening of the summer window, that will give you a real advantage. And I like him. I like the look of him, I have to say, in terms of his resume and what he's done at PSV. I like the fact anyone who's gone up and maintained a working relationship with Diego Simeone for a long, long time. You're a strong character. You got a strong personality to be able to deal with that because we know how intense Simeone is. And I think that's a real plus point. Arteta's very demanding. And I think you've got to have a strong personality and strong character to go up against Mikel Arteta and to challenge him, which I think is really important. And I think Arteta will want to be challenged as well. I don't think he want this sort of yes man that a lot of social media fans seem to think Arteta would want. I genuinely don't believe that from how I know of what I know of Arteta. And I think Berta ticks a lot of boxes in terms of what he could potentially bring to Arsenal.
Yeah, I would love to be a fly on the wall with somebody disagreeing with Diego Simeone.
Mm.
That's go. That might not be pretty, but you
But that
mentioned.
would have happened, that would have you don't spend that long at a club and not have big disagreements if you're a sporting director because you're always going to have sort of different visions, but it is, no matter how aligned you are, there's always going to be times where you disagree with something, and if you can go up against Simeone for that long, I think that really sort of bodes well for what he could potentially bring at Arsenal. And yes, people have pointed to some of his big money deals of like João Felix and Thomas Amar hadn't worked, but you're always going to have misses. I think that when you look at the vast majority of the deals that Atletico have done over the years while Berta's been in charge, they've been good and they've maintained a really strong squad that's been able to compete with Barca and Real Madrid, even though being severely limited financially compared to those other two big two. So that's why when I look at the sort of negatives and the positives from his potential appointment, I think there's definitely more positives there from an Arsenal point of view, and I can understand why maybe he is right at the top of the list.
Yeah, like you say, he's not got a perfect track record with the big money buys. Like, yeah, I mean, obviously you said there, João Felix, Thomas Lamar hasn't been fantastic, but Atletico have sold players for big money as well under his wing. So Antoine Griezmann, obviously to Barcelona, didn't work out, and then Lucas Hernandez, Rodri, they all left for big fees as well. And I think Arsenal have at times or quite a lot been criticised for, a perceived failure to not get enough money for the players they've sold. I mean, maybe up until last year because Nketiah and Smith Rowe left for decent fees, but before that, it was, there was the era of just terminating contracts, and since then they've been accused of not getting respectable or reasonable fees for the players they've sold. So could that be an area for significant improvement under Andrea Berta?
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, look, I think Arsenal have improved in that regard. It takes a while, I think, to be viewed by others as not as bad sellers. I think Arsenal is widely viewed. They were pretty terrible sellers for a while, and they were when clubs see you just terminating contracts left, right, and centre. When they come in for your players, they're like, well, if I just hold out a little bit extra, a little bit longer here, they're just going to end up terminating the contracts, and I can get them for free. So why would I put any money in? So you got to. I think they have moved away from that now, and you're right. Last summer they got some good deals done for some good players, and when you go back a couple of years, you got Balogun, Smith Rowe, and Nketiah. Good money coming in for some of these players. So I think they are slowly moving away from that, but they can definitely still improve. I mean, a lot of people are pointing to Mika Biereth at the moment, for example. It's a 4 million sale last summer. His price is probably quadrupled in the space of a few months, given what he's done first when he went to Sturm Graz and now at Monaco, obviously. So yes, there's probably an area for Arsenal to improve on that. Um, but I don't really think if he comes in, I don't really want to. I'm not too bothered about who he sells at the moment. It's about who you buy. I don't know you need to maybe make a couple of sales to generate some money, but I'd be really excited about who he could potentially bring in rather than sales because I think last summer Arsenal got rid of most of their sellable assets. When you look at the squad now, there's not really too many unless you sort of sell one of the sort of bona fide stars in this team. There's not too many players now left who you'd look at as potentially expendable, but the sort of for decent price. That last summer was they were in an excellent position for that. I don't think they really are now.
Yeah, so would Berta have been your number one pick? I mean, the shortlist there was supposedly about sort of 4 or 5 names. Obviously, Jason Ito, the current interim,
Mm.
Alabe you mentioned, Thiago Scuro, formerly Monaco, I think, and then Dan Ashworth as well. So of all those options, would Berta have been your number one choice?
I don't know. I liked Alabe. I did like Alabe. My worry about Alabe, like I said, was the fact that he wasn't out of contract or anything like that, so he was going to have to see out the season for Sociedad, where he's very, very committed. And my worry is what that would have meant for this summer's transfer window. But aside from that, I thought he was a good candidate. He's done some really great things with Sociedad on a fairly, limited budget as well compared to it, or even Berta at Atletico Madrid. So I liked him. I thought the fact he and Arteta had a bit of a relationship as well. So I wouldn't have been disappointed if it ended up being him. Louis Campos, people spoke about a lot as well, and obviously he's done a lot of great things wherever he's been. But I did feel that would be slightly more of a kind of political thing. I could see that being a short term thing. It wouldn't surprise me. You get someone like Louis Campos within a couple of years, he moves on, goes somewhere else. And I don't think Arsenal need that right now. They need a little bit of stability to come in after Edu because they've done such great work, him and Arteta, over the last few years to get Arsenal to where they are now. And you don't want to see that crumble now. So I think it's really important they make an appointment, they get him in now ahead of the summer, and then they really try and go again because there's no doubt they've flatlined a bit this season. They had a poor summer last year. One poor summer is bad enough, but you can't allow one poor summer to turn into two poor summers because in the Premier League you just fall so far behind at that point. So this summer's crucial. So yeah, getting Berta in now I think would be key, and I think he's going to be a very very he would be a good appointment. Would he have been right at the top? I don't know, but with it looking like it's going to happen now, I can't look at it and think it's going to be a poor appointment.
Yeah, Arsenal had several candidates reportedly, but there was one name who wasn't on the apparent shortlist, but he did say there was interest in him was Thomas Rosicky, the little Mozart. He came out and told the media that he was under consideration, obviously currently sporting director at Sparta Prague and still a massive fan favourite of the Emirates, always will be. I look at the Edu appointment because he was, Rosicky's a bit of a rookie in sporting director terms. Edu was also not highly experienced, but he had that real deep connection with Arsenal, as Rosicky has, and ended up doing a very good job. So, in your eyes, is it important for a sporting director to have that deep connection like Edu and Rosicky, or do they just need the experience like Andrea Berta?
Yeah, no, I don't think they need a connection. It helps. It helps with the fans if you're bringing in someone who the fans know and love already. But I don't think it makes any sort of difference in terms of the club and the job you're going to do. You look around at all the top sporting directors around the world; they don't really have too much of a connection with the clubs they're working in. So no, I think for fans it's nice. Like you said, Thomas Rosicky is a hugely popular player at Arsenal during his time at the club, and had he come back, I'm sure everyone would have got behind him. But I think when you sort of look at the jobs and the profile that they've been doing at their respective clubs, if you're putting Berta up against Thomas Rosicky, I think there's probably only one kind of winner resume wise in that battle. So yeah, like when Arsenal started the process, went out. It was they were working with a recruitment company at first to sort of gather everyone in. There was lots of people considered, and Rosicky would have been in that. Well, he was in that list, but now it's got whittled down to the sort of final few. I don't think he's there. I think he's kind of dropped out of the running a little bit, which is why, as he said, yes, he was being considered, but he hasn't really heard anything since then.